Hopefully everything's going to work. I'm not going to drop. Hi, Tal. I'm not going to drop all my recordings this week. Okay. All right. Well, welcome to another Tuesday evening, a fun-filled Tuesday evening. I think this is going to be a pretty good one, especially for those of us that are just getting started in the business, especially if you have some people that you're working with that are looking at the business, just coming into a business. So we'll get started here. Let's go to share screen. All right, share my screen. And we'll go. All right. Well, welcome to another Tuesday night business boot camp with Pat. I'm your host, Pat Calcagno. That's me. That's when I actually look decent. I like that picture. Actually, about the only picture I own with me in anything other than a pair of jeans and a t-shirt. Okay, getting back to the basics. Last week we talked about the 6 questions you need to ask yourself when you start in any story. And really, when we're doing a business, when we're becoming entrepreneurs, when we make the decision that we want to become entrepreneurs, we really have to ask ourselves, those 6 questions, who, what, when, where, why, and how. All right, so last week we talked a little bit about the why. You know me, I'm a big mindset guy. I'm a big why guy. We're not going to talk a lot. We're not going to really talk about it tonight, but we're going to go on to one of the other ones that I think is really important, and that is the how. Okay, so we're getting started. All right, you're floating around the internet, you're realizing that the world is changing. Things that worked for our parents 30, 40, 50 years ago just aren't working today. More and more companies are downsizing. They're moving people out of the country. People are on the verge of losing their jobs. And the worst part is that it's virtually impossible to find any place anymore that'll give you a pension. You might be lucky and find some place that's going to chip into a 401k for you if you're lucky, if you've been there for a while. But for the most part, nobody cares. My sister, good example. She is a manager of a dental office here in town. And I asked her the other day, I said, so, you're at that age where, you're looking 8-10 years down the road, getting ready for retirement. What kind of a retirement you have? I'll win the lottery. I said, are you serious? She said, yeah, I've got no retirement. They don't pay anything into my retirement, and I'm living paycheck to paycheck. So I can't afford to put into a retirement. So more and more of us are looking for alternatives. The old days of, I know when I was a kid, if my folks needed extra money, they'd go out, my dad would go get a part-time job, to bring in some extra cash. That's not a viable alternative anymore. So more and more people are looking to become their own bosses, to start their own business, to be entrepreneurs. Okay, so like I said,
that's right.
You look at any basic literature class, they tell you got to answer these 6 questions to really get a decent story going. And I think it's the same way with a business. If you're gonna be in business, you better be able to answer these 6 questions. Okay, so like I said, we talked about the why on our last get together. This time we're going to talk about the how. All right, big blue letters. How in the world are we going to do something different than what our folks did? Okay, good question. Well, if we look back to our parents' generation, there is what I like to call the traditional business model. Okay, this was, you go to school, you get an education, you get a good job, you get a career, you work at it for 35 or 40 years. At the end of that time, you get the gold watch. And realistically, you end up in the ground with dirt being thrown in your face about 4 or 5 years later. Here we are in the 21st century. A traditional business model really doesn't apply. It really doesn't work anymore. Now, it's great for kids that are just coming out of high school, for teenagers, early 20s, to get their feet into the business world. You can go out and you can get a job somewhere. But basically, what you need to look at for businesses is all businesses, and this is my opinion, I've yet to find anything that breaks outside of this, but all businesses revolve around one of two things: products or services. You either have to be producing a product and delivering a product to your customers, or you have to be producing a service. Okay? I mean, I have yet to find anything that doesn't fall into one of those two categories. If somebody knows of one, please email me. So, I mean, I've got that information. But I would say for safety's sake, 99.999% of all businesses on this planet are either product-based or service-based. Okay, so I call this an aggressive income. And when I say aggressive income, that means that you got to be out there, you got to be selling your products, you got to be selling your services, or you're working for somebody that's using you to promote their products and services. Okay? Basically, what you're doing is you're trading your time for money. Okay? Traditional business model, you trade your time for money. We have time, we find an employer that tells us how much our time is worth, and we're willing to give them X amount of hours in exchange for X amount of dollars. Okay? Basically, what this is the nasty three-letter word, the job. And I think we're all pretty much in agreement, and it doesn't matter whether you are a business owner today or whether you're just one of these people that are seriously looking at becoming a business owner. The traditional job just does not have a whole lot of appeal for us. Now, there is a huge segment of the population that will continue to be employees. These are people that will continue to trade their time for money. I don't know if it's because of fear, lack of education, lack of confidence, whatever it is, for them, that is the safe course. Trade your time for money. So let's take a look at a couple things. One thing that each and every one of us has, and this is now we're still in the traditional business mode. So I want you to think about this. So each and every one of us have 24 hours in a day. All right? There's 7 days in a week. That means that there's 168 hours available to each and every one of us every week. 168 hours. Nobody else gets more, and God forbid that something happens to you and you get less. But 168 hours. So out of that 168 hours, about 8 hours a day, we're going to spend either resting or sleeping. Okay? We have to rejuvenate our bodies. We have to rejuvenate our minds. And we do that through rest. We do that through sleep. Now, I know some people survive on 3, 4, 5 hours of sleep a day. Some people actually have to have 8 to 10 to 11 hours a day. But on average, a third of your day is spent in bed asleep. So if we look at 8 hours a day times 7 days a week, that's 56 hours a week that we're asleep. Okay. Now, if we want to eat, if we want to pay our bills, if we want to go on a nice vacation, we're going to have to take 8 of those hours every day, and we're going to have to do a job. We're going to have to trade those 8 hours 5 days a week for money from somebody. Okay, that's another 40 hours a week out of our 168 hours a week. Unless you're your own boss, and in which case, if you're your own boss, you're probably working 20 hours a day, 7 days a week. So let's take a look at this. We each have 168 hours a week. Out of that 168 hours, we're going to subtract 56 hours that we spend asleep every week. We're also going to subtract the 40 hours a week that we have to spend trading our time for money. That leaves us a grand total of 72 hours during the week total. That's 3 complete days. That's less than half a week of free time. That's time for us to do with as we please. But also, you need to understand that in that 72 hours, there's driving to and from work. There's getting ready to go to work. There's taking care of the kids, taking the kids to school, doing the things that we need to do. we only have 72 free hours during a week to take care of all the business other than sleeping and working. And I don't think that's fair. I don't think out of 168 hours that we should only have to have 72 hours to do with as we please. So what we're going to do, and for me, I don't know about you guys, but I get stressed out. If I start thinking about going back to work and working a job and doing stuff like that, I get stressed out. And like my little buddy here shows you, you know what? Stressed out is not pretty. Okay. So now we're going to talk about a modern business model, and I call it the modern business model. This business model has been around for a lot of years. Modern business model is just a term that I use to show you the differences between what's been done in the past and what people are starting to do today. Okay, same as before. Modern business model, you still have to have a product or a service that you're going to trade that product and service for money. Okay. Now, but the biggest difference between a modern business model and a traditional business model is now what we're doing is we're looking at trying to build passive income as opposed to the aggressive income where, you have a boss that tells you, hey, I want you here 8 hours a day and I'm going to give you, $22 an hour to be here. Okay. Well, now you have somebody telling you how much your time is worth. Okay, if I only have 72 hours to myself, my time is worth a lot of money. And I'm not going to let anybody try to shortchange me. So what I want to do is I want to build some passive income. So you hear that term a lot, but a lot of people really kind of don't understand what passive income is. Well, what I'm talking about is residual income. And what residual income is, it means you put your work in first. You put the work in first, and then you reap the benefits later on. So it's like, well, it's like a farmer. A farmer goes out, tills the soil, and plants the seed. So he's doing all the work up front, and then at the end of the grow season, he has a crop that he goes out and he harvests. Now he's working during that time, but that's what a residual is. He planted those seeds at the beginning of the year. Those seeds came to fruition at the end of the year, and he harvests. So that's what we want to do is we want to plant those seeds today so we can harvest down the road so we don't have to replant them again. Okay? And this is what I call a business. Okay? A business versus a job. Now, this is what we need to understand. There are a huge amount of small business owners that have really done nothing but traded a job on one hand for a job on the other hand. Just because you're the one that's writing the check and you're paying the bills doesn't mean that you don't have a job. If you have to show up at your store every single day or that thing's going to go under, you just got a different kind of job. It's different. Okay. So we're going to look at the modern business model, and I'm going to use an example here that I really like to use when I'm talking to people that are trying to get their head around residual income. All right. I call it the Seinfeld method. Now, anybody over the age of about 15 years old is going to probably know who these folks are. All right. Everybody, I think, has at least seen one of these episodes, with Kramer and George and Elaine and Jerry. Okay, so we all know who Seinfeld is. Now, why do I use Seinfeld? Okay, first of all, if you're familiar with the show at all, it's really nothing more than a show about Jerry, kind of a caricature of Jerry's life and growing up. And so there's an episode where he and George are actually pitching this show to the network executives. And they're trying to figure out how to describe the show to the network executives. And George goes, it's a show about nothing. Well, what do you mean? It's a show about absolutely nothing. And that's how they pitched the show, a show about absolutely nothing. Now, I don't know about you guys, but if I could learn how to make a lot of money doing absolutely nothing, I would love that. I mean, because I'll tell you what, man, on my 72-hour block, I am an expert of doing absolutely nothing. Okay, so we're going to talk about Seinfeld. let's look at some stuff about Seinfeld. Seinfeld aired from 1989 to 1998, 9 seasons, okay? I know some people think like it was on a lot longer than that or a lot shorter, but it was only 9 seasons. The best year that Jerry Seinfeld had during the run of the show, he made $1 million an episode. So think about that. They did about 15, 16 episodes a season. So he made about, say, $15 to $16 million for one season of doing nothing but getting up on stage and acting like himself. Not a bad deal. Okay, here is the absolute amazing part. This is what fascinates me about this story, and this is why I love to use this example. But as you can see right here, went off the air in 1998, 20 years ago. 20 years ago. And in that 20 years, they have made over $1 billion. That's with a B. That's the big B. $1 billion off the Seinfeld show. $1 billion off a show that has not been on the air for over 20 years. I mean, that, I don't know about you guys, but that just, that absolutely boggles my mind. Well, how did they do it? Well, Jerry Seinfeld, who is one of the 2 creators of the show, him and Larry David, extremely intelligent business people. What they did, they created the show, so they owned the show. So when the show got ready to come off the air, they went and they turned around and they syndicated it. But not only that, as everybody knows, if you're an actor, if you're a musician, if you write music, if you write plays, if you write movies, there's a thing called royalties, residual income. Jerry Seinfeld put all the effort into building this show right here, and for the next 20 years, he continues to collect money. Now, Jerry has made over $600 million off the Seinfeld show since it went off the air. Not while it was on the air, but since it went off the air. He's one of the wealthiest actors in Hollywood, because of this. Because he plugged into 2 systems that were already in place. He didn't invent syndication. Syndication had been around for a long time. He didn't invent royalties. He didn't reinvent the wheel. What he did was he found two things that he could leverage. He leveraged syndication, which means that he took that show and he sold it to other networks, sold it to other countries, sold DVDs, VHS, movie rights, all the, everything. He sold a lot of the rights, making money off it. Every time Seinfeld shows on TV, every time somebody buys a DVD, he makes money. And royalties, getting back. Every time this show is played on TV, he gets paid. He gets paid royalties as an actor and as the creator. That's not a bad deal. So this is your new business model right here. Residual income. Put the effort in once. Do all the hard work at the beginning. And down the road, collect the benefits. That's what we're talking about. So if you haven't started your own business, if you're still in that phase where you're thinking about starting your own business, that's what you want to look for. You want to look for something that you can put your effort into up front and continue to make money on the back end. Okay? If it's something that you have to, I was in ML, a little bit about me. I was in MLMs. I've been in network marketing before because I've always been looking for something. But the one thing that they had that I didn't like was I would go out and I would kill myself trying to find a new client. I would find a new client, they would buy something, and then I had to go and repeat myself because that client was gone. They bought once and they're down the road. Unless it was somebody that I brought into the business, and then in which case they bought twice, then we're down the road. They stopped buying. I didn't want that. I wanted something that I could put all my efforts in up front. I could work hard for a few years and then kind of, pump on the brakes a little bit. but still have that level of income coming in. So that's what you want to look for. You want to look for a vehicle that's going to, once you put all your effort into it, that down the road, you're going to get the opportunity to make some money on the back end. So you want to look for something with the potential for making residual income, residual, passive, long-term income. All right. Like I said, syndication and royalties, residual income. Means it just keeps coming no matter what. Whether he's sitting in his house, whether he's doing his podcast of comedians going to have coffee in cars, or he's on tour, the money from Seinfeld, from the TV show, keeps rolling into his bank account every day. Here's another good example of residual income. I didn't throw it up here, but I'll talk about it for a second. Ray Kroc. If you don't know who Ray Kroc is, Ray Kroc was the founder of McDonald's hamburgers. Now, he didn't invent McDonald's hamburgers. He met the McDonald brothers in San Bernardino back in the 50s, saw what they were doing, and came and said, whoa, wait a minute. You know what? This is a great system. I want to sell your system. So bought the rights to selling the system, or bought the rights for the franchise. This was back in the 50s. Well, today, the Kroc family, the last time I heard was about 8 years ago, we're making something like 1/2 of 1 penny off every single item sold in every McDonald's everywhere in the world. I mean, they were making some ungodly amount of money, like $32 million a day, just because of the work Ray Kroc had done back in the 50s. Okay. So you have your traditional business model. Okay, basically what you're doing is you're trading time for money. Okay, you have to, you can try to set the price of your time. The problem is people may not want to buy it. I have some little artisan businesses on the side. I do custom leather work, and I have a set fee that I do for my leather work. I charge $30 an hour to custom tool leather, and people do not want to pay for it. Okay, so I mean, obviously I have to do something else because I'm not making any money because people don't want to pay my prices, but I'm worth it, trust me. So anyway, trading time for money, your only alternative is to either make your time more valuable or spend more time doing it. Okay, and like we looked at before, you only have 72 hours left over after sleeping and working to try to make more money. So your only other alternative is to try to make your time worth more money. But you have everybody else telling you how much your time's worth. Versus the modern business model, which is creating passive income, creating residual income. And I think that anybody that sees this, anybody would tell you that, yeah, I mean, if I could do it once and continue to get paid for it, like a musician does, they write a song. You look at John Lennon and Paul McCartney. Paul McCartney and John Lennon's estate continue to get paid every time a Beatles CD gets played, every time somebody downloads something from iTunes, they still get paid. They wrote this music 60 years ago, and they're still getting paid for it. 50 something years ago. So, like I said, what I'm going to be doing is, as we're doing these little webinars, I'm going to recommend some books. So since we're kind of talking about business development today, I'm going to recommend a couple of books that I think are just outstanding business development books for getting your mind in the right place to go out and do business. So like I said, whether you are a business owner right now or whether you're just looking to become a business owner, here's some good recommendations for you. First one I'm going to recommend is The Cash Flow Quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki. If you haven't read any of Robert Kiyosaki's stuff, he talks about things in a way that you don't have to be an MBA to understand him. He talks about the difference between debts and assets and how to move from one column to another, and the difference between being a small business owner and being an actual business person. And I like that when he comes right out and says, look, if you can't walk away from your business today for 2, 3, 4, 5 months and expect it to be in better shape, in the same shape or better shape when you get back, then you're not a business person. You're a small business owner. If your business is dependent on you doing the work, you're a small business owner. But try cash flow quadrant. You know, I recommended Rich Dad, Poor Dad the last time I was here. Getting started in this business, Robert Kiyosaki, I think is a great read for people that are just getting started in their own businesses. Another great book for getting started in business is The E-Myth Revisited by Simon Sinek. He talks about some of the myths of entrepreneurship, specifically how the difference between somebody that he calls a technician over a manager, how they look at their businesses and how they run them, and how you have to pretty much be able to wear a couple of different hats if you want to have a successful business. Really good read. It's a great book. I've done it a couple times, and about every 6 months I'll pick it up again and I'll listen to it. I listen to the audiobooks. And of course, The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. You know, Tim, what can you say? You read Tim Ferriss, you know, and you're ready to tell your boss you're going, you know, you're going to the South Pacific, you're going to Thailand for 6 months, and you'll do your work, you know, remotely from Thailand. But he's got some pretty good advice in there on how that when your business starts picking up, how to make sure that you find the right people to help you keep your business running. All right, so that's our book recommendations for the week. I'm going to leave you with a couple of parting thoughts. No matter what you choose to do, always give it your best. That way, no matter what happens, you'll be able to hold your head high knowing you gave it everything you have. Win, lose, or draw. If you give it 110%, at the end of the day, you can lay your head down and know that you did your best. All right, guys, if you'd like to email me some comments, criticisms, suggestions, feel free to. You can drop me an email at pats21step@gmail.com. I answer them when I get them. I haven't been getting many lately. If you want to hook up with me on Skype, if you haven't gotten onto the Skype group yet, shoot me an email at patcalcagno@student.rcc.edu. And on YouTube, you'll be able to see these replays and all the other stuff that I do for practicing video stuff, you know, putting up my retirement rants and whatnot. Just go to my name, Patrick Calcagno, type that in, and it'll come up with my channel on YouTube. All right, guys. Stop share here. Okay. Well, let me, I'll take you guys off on mute. Anybody got any comments, criticisms? Richard, you don't look amused, man. What's up?
I came in late, so I didn't see all of it. So
That's okay.
Forgot about daylight savings time.
Huh?
Forgot about daylight savings time.
That's why I put in the post. You guys in Arizona, don't forget we're on the same time zone now. But that's okay. I changed up the. I got the software cleared up.